Hello, my name is Ben Watara, and welcome to today's episode of the I Am Possible podcast. And in today's episode, I'd like to give you a little tool that I use to kind of coach myself, to kind of give myself better advice and structure the thoughts that are in my mind. Because you see, a lot of times we have patterns of thinking that repeat themselves. And when we get exposed to information, when we read books, when we go to seminars, when we just have people that teach us things, we might listen to something and it sounds logical, but then when we're in situations and we just think about stuff, we can get stuck in our own mind because we're emotionally involved. We have patterns that the way we used to think, even if it's not logical, it's just we're so used to it. We have neural connections that just keep firing again and again, and we're not able to create that distance. And did it ever happen to you that a friend of yours asked you for advice and you were able to give great advice, but when you're in similar situations, you cannot seem to be such a genius at delivering ideas and brainstorm for solutions? Whether it's in relationships, whether it's with business, whether it's with anything that is emotional. Everything that is emotional, we're usually very good at giving other people advice on the same things that when we are facing them, we kind of struggle. Now, why is that? It's because we are emotionally involved and we cannot think clearly. That's why it's important to create a kind of a distance between your thoughts and your emotions. Now, you can create distance with time. Sometimes when something happens and you're in the middle of it, you can't think clearly, and then you let 2, 3, 4 days pass by, and then you revisit the whole thing, and now you kind of have a clearer mind to make a decision. That's why it's very important not to make business decisions on the spot. Like, I never do handshake deals in the moment, because sometimes things sound very good, and I know that emotionally I can be involved and invested and super hyped up about something that I just agree to something that is a little bit to my disadvantage. So I always tell people, I need to sleep over this, or just give me a couple of days. I need to go over this and revisit the whole thing, look at it from different angles. And a lot of times has nothing to do with getting more information. It's just emotionally kind of distancing myself and just looking at it and seeing, okay, is that really something that I want? And do I see myself doing that? And do I see myself doing it with this person? So you can have time as an element, but the main technique, I can call it, that I want to talk to you about is something that is so simple, but it's just very few people do it, and I haven't been doing for a long time until I just came across someone that told me that they think on paper, and I've been doing that now for the past 10 years almost, but I just think on paper. Like, whenever I have a situation, a problem, when I want to brainstorm, I do it daily. I just write on paper, but especially when I have problems or when I have situations that are kind of hard to grasp or where I'm emotionally involved. Because what happens when you write down is that you're creating a distance between yourself and your thoughts. Your thoughts are now on paper. And when you then look at it, you can kind of see your thoughts on this paper. It's not in your mind anymore. And now you can think about it from that outside perspective. And another trick that I like to do is I try to imagine that it's someone telling me that they have these problems. Like, I look at my own words and my own thoughts, but I act as if someone else was telling me that, and I need to look at giving them advice. So I try to picture that. It's like, what would I tell someone that will tell me this? And I kind of distance myself even more. So now I distance myself in the first step for my thoughts, but now I'm distancing myself from myself. If I wasn't me, if this was not emotionally charged for me, how would I behave, or what would I think? And it's a habit. It's something that you can practice, and you become better and better at it. Sometimes certain situations are really so emotionally charged that I still need to take 2 or 3 days and combine this, but I always write it down. I never think in my mind, because you might miss certain things as soon as you start writing things down. And also, what I do is I will really put a timer of like 50 minutes. I will write down my thoughts about this for 50 minutes, because what it does is it helps you to dig deeper. Sometimes we think about something, but we only browse on the surface. And when I start writing my thoughts down after 15, 20 minutes, I feel that that's it. There's nothing more about this that I can write down. That's all the thoughts that I had. But because I put the timer on 50 minutes, I wait and I keep sitting there. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes go by, and then boom, there is one more thing. Oh, I forgot about this. And I write it down. And then after 30 minutes, I'm like, oh, and then there's this other thing. And I start writing down. And all of a sudden, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And by the end of the 50 minutes, I wrote 3 times more than I had after 20 minutes. Now, all these information, all these things were in my mind, but I just didn't have access to them. And when I think in my mind without writing down, I feel that I only have access to the first 10 minutes of this process of writing down. And I keep just spinning the same thoughts in my mind around and keep bouncing back and forth. And that's why sometimes you can think about something for a week, and then you have a conversation with someone and they ask you a question you didn't ask yourself. And you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Or, man, I didn't see it like this. And you're not stupid. You had the possibility to see that. It's just that you didn't stay on this topic long enough. The longer you sit on the problem, the longer you sit on the situation, the more thoughts, and that's a creative process. You just look at the fact and you keep having more and more and more and more information that comes out of your brain. It was there the whole time, but you just didn't you didn't have enough time to let it come out. So that is the one thing that you can do is really, step one, think on paper. Take a distance between your thoughts and your brain. Then imagine you're someone else and you're giving yourself advice based on what you wrote down. And don't just write things down for 5 to 10 minutes, but really take 50 minutes. I take 50 minutes. You can do it however you want. You can spin it however you want. I'm just explaining why I do this. And then I start to write down 10 possible solutions without any judgment, without any, like when you start writing down solutions, they're like, yeah, but that's not realistic. And a lot of times we just kick ideas off when we didn't even allow ourselves to really investigate them. So whatever comes to your mind, just write it down. What would 10 solutions be that you have right now for this one thing that you can do? And then just look at it. And a lot of times, just doing that process of thinking on paper, distancing yourself from the time, you distance yourself from that emotion in time and in space, from bringing it from your brain down, allowing yourself to stay on the problem for a long time, and then writing down the solutions. That alone is an exercise that I do on a regular basis. It sounds so simple. Nowadays we have applications for everything and we feel that everything needs to be complex, but at the end of the day, your brain is the most powerful machine there is on this world, on this planet. And especially in your own life. Your brain has the ability to figure out everything if you just give it enough time and if you set the right framework for it. That's why this is an exercise that you should try it out. Take something that right now you've been struggling with for a while and just try that. Try these steps. Write it down. And let me know, how it worked. And of course, you might still do that and still be stuck. I'm not saying that you're going to do that and it's going to be the solution to all your problems. Obviously, sometimes we still need information. We still need to go out there and find certain things out, try certain things. And that is the next step. I'm going to talk about that in another episode, but to try things that might not work, because if you write down these 10 solutions, obviously these are potential solutions. You just write down what could work. You never know until you try. The feedback of what you try will make you realize what is a good idea, what is a bad idea. But a lot of times we're trying to judge ideas in advance before we ever try it because we're so scared of failure. And, that's why we stay stuck in that circle, in that cycle, but then we never get new informations. But before we even get to the point where we have quality steps that we can take, we need to investigate our own mind, our own thoughts, everything that we know about something. Because a lot of times we have the information, and that's why when someone asks you certain questions or you sit down with, sometimes there's also, that's the second step that I wanted to tell you. Sometimes you sit with someone and you tell them about your problem, and they don't even give you no advice. They don't even ask you any questions. Just the fact that you're talking to someone and explaining it to them you're kind of realizing what you're saying. I don't know if it ever happened to you, but it happened to me a lot of times before. I would just tell someone about a situation, and then I'm like, oh, hold on, I know what to do. And now you're excited because by the fact of explaining it to someone else, if you catch yourself, sometimes it's possible to speak and hear yourself at the same time, which is another exercise that you can do if you like hearing your own voice, is to talk and really and record yourself and then listen to yourself. You can learn a lot from yourself when you talk, and you might be like, oh, wow, like now that I listen to myself, I actually see where the problem is. And then we get back to you are the problem. So a lot of times when you blame and complain, you're not even aware. So you bring awareness to it when you start to observe yourself and you start to listen to yourself. But I still find that recording yourself is not as powerful as writing, because when you write, you can never write as fast as you think. So you're automatically slowing down your thoughts, and you kind of bring structure to it. There is a flow, and you can go back and you can see many things at the same time, which you can't when you speak and you listen to your recording. It's linear, right? So if you listen to a 10-minute recording, you have to listen for minute 1, 2, 3. But if you write 5 pages, you can actually glance at the 5 pages, and kind of the process of just doing that, to me, actually helps me to dig even deeper into what is in my mind, and then creates that distance from the emotions. That I just see facts. It's facts written on paper. And that's usually the problem. The problem is our emotions, is our involvement. We have a situation that is facts, but then we add emotions to it. Now we make it worse than it is. And then we start to blame and criticize. And then we make something into a catastrophe, or, like a dilemma and drama. But at the end of the day, it's just facts. And when you write it down, you can create that distance and look, okay, this is what happened. This is what I got to do. Now let me take the next step. So, simplify things. That is my motto, is to simplify, to create distance, and to think on paper. So, again, I always come back to this. You can learn a lot, but the biggest subject you can study is yourself. You can learn more from yourself than from anyone or anything else out there. And then you learn and you grow. Until I stop breathing, I will not stop to grow, and always remember that I am possible. Take care, guys.